What did your friend do that accidentally turned you on? I was making coffee in my AeroPress for us and pressing slowly on the top of it like you're supposed to, when she shouldered me over a little and leaned on my hand to push it down faster. It was cute as fuck and I'll never forget it. Edit. Oh shit. This is too many upvotes, she's gonna see it. Hi. Sorry. We were sitting on her couch watching Thor Ragnarok, finished our Chinese food, she got a pint of Ben & Jerry's out of her freezer and she sat sideways half on my lap and took turns taking a bite and feeding me a bite. It was oddly intimate, but she'd made it clear she was convinced if we started to date we'd end up married, and she wasn't sure she was ready for that. 6 months later we were dating, 6 months after that we were married, coming up on our 2-year anniversary. I was off from college for about a week. I came back and a friend of mine who I hung out with every day ran up and hugged me. But as she hugged me she jumped and wrapped her legs around me and we were just looking at each other. Should have just went for it but alas, I only realized after the fact months later. If I could go back in time I'd punch myself in the balls. I had a friend who I hung out with during high school. We would make our homework together and always study together for the big tests. She was attractive but I never looked at her that way. One day when we were in the library studying, I noticed that she wore a different perfume. When I asked about it, she came very close to me and made me sniff her neck. I never knew that I could get a boner so fast. After that, things went further and eventually we got married years later. Lol. I was cracking jokes with a co-worker and when she laughed at something I said she pushed at my chest in that "oh stop it you" kinda way and woo oh boy I damn near melted right then and there. In a hotel room on a school trip with a bunch of my friends, we were of course talking about sex and kinks and shit, and it went a little something like this. Friend, do you like to be choked? Me, I wouldn't know. Friend, throws me back on the bed and chokes me. Me. Edit, spacing, was on the bus for a field trip in high school. I was a little late. The only open seat was next to my crush. I was in grad 12, she was in grad 11. It was a 6-hour round trip. And the person you sat with was your partner for the entire trip. She had a tank top and wasn't wearing a bra. It was a bit chilly on the bus. On our way back she was cold and didn't bring a sweater. I had a long sleeve on so I handed her my sweater. She put it on and snuggled into me and fell asleep. So cute. When we got back to town I offered a ride home. We ended up making out in her driveway. A week later I got my sweater back asking for a refresher of my smell. The sweater smelled just like her. I asked her on a date that day. We dated for 2 years. I came back from freshman year college to visit high school and walked into the auditorium, where an incredibly cute girl I was friends with saw me, stopped what she was doing and literally ran up the aisle and jumped into my arms to hug me. Plot twist, married 26 years and have a son, this one girl started tickling me. When I started tickling her back, she started to moan and said she was sensitive there. Awkward drive home. Oh, I know that feeling. Except that in my case, my friend and I were watching a movie down in his parents' basement back in high school. It was a little chilly and we were kinda playfully fighting over the throw blanket. It turned into a bit of a tickle fight, but I was winning because I am not ticklish except for a few extremely sensitive places, whereas he was ticklish everywhere. He told me it wasn't fair that he couldn't tickle me since my only ticklish spots are the sides of my breasts and back of knees. I dared him to try it, thinking he never would as he was a good Christian boy. He absolutely went for it and tickled me unmercifully for about a minute until it morphed into complete and total desire. He could absolutely tell the second it changed and we ended up making out. I absolutely would have fucked him then and there, but we never went any farther. We never had a repeat of the makeout session, but there was always a huge amount of sexual tension between us after that and it really kind of ruined the friendship. Held my hand for a few seconds. Just happened a few days ago, she was driving and we held hands for a while. I'm still evaluating why that had such an impact on me. Really cute girl I had a crush on sat in my lap on the school bus headed home because there weren't enough seats. This same girl also told me I don't ever ask guys out because that's their job. Holy shit, I was so stupid. As a guy I decided to fall asleep on a close friend's lap who then proceeded to stroke my hair and lightly pulling it. It was really hard to fall asleep cause I was more worried that I'd get a boner from that. When he whispers into my ear, even though sometimes it's just something silly and not sexy. A group of us went to a firework display and during the usual louder and bigger finale fireworks she jumped, grabbed my arm tight and didn't let go. Not sure what happened inside me but yeah, that did it. I had this friend that while having long phone call sessions, she used to talk to me in the seductive sounding Colombian accent and called me a bizcocho, which is cake in Spanish. Never thought being called a dessert would be hot. Or maybe I'm just weird. He was driving and I was riding shotgun. He had to reverse to parallel park and turned his torso towards me, putting his arm around my seat in order to look back. He did that so confidently and effortlessly that it made me feel a little funny. I offered him a sip of my drink and he made intense eye contact with me as he slowly put the straw in his mouth and took a nice long sip. I found it kinda weird to be turned on so much by him sucking on a straw since I don't have a dick. We've been dating for over 2 years now. A colleague friend took care of my wounded knee during work. We were alone in the canteen and he was very sweet and caring. Guess I'm not used to that. She dried my motorcycle seat with her sleeve while I was putting my helmet on. A close friend from uni pulled my ponytail firmly enough to get my attention because I didn't hear him call me. Had to catch my breath after that. We're married now. Ruffled my hair. It wasn't that big a deal, but she was one of my close friends and that just... Wow. We were in some math class in high school and she was tutoring me mid-class. She was leaning over next to me as I was sat down and she had her hand on my back. She was almost whispering into my ear how to figure out this problem. Something about her voice was so soothing and arousing. It was very sensual and I still think about it often. Nothing ever happened with her. We grew apart after school. Something very similar happened at my job recently though, so it brought me back. I told her a joke and she smiled so much, looked at the ground, then gave me a "you're so funny" look. I honestly wanted to date her since then. It's been 3 years and I'm still thinking of her. He and I were watching a movie when he gave me a hug. While hugging me he gently ran his hands up and down my back. He didn't mean anything sexual with it. I on the other hand have a very sensitive back and was severely turned on by it. The next day he made fun of me for being ticklish. I then admitted to the truth about that. Needless to say he did it again later. I found restraints on his bedposts from an encounter with an ex and made fun of him, then asked him how they work. Instead of telling me, he proceeded to put the ankle restraints on me and threw my legs over his neck and showed different ways he could fuck me. I've known this dude since I was a kid and he's family to me, but I instantly wanted to drop my panties and say fuck our childhood, let's ruin a friendship. So that's how I found my kink in college. Multiple things. First, in a party he danced with me and lifted me in the air. I'm not thin and not many people tried this with me. Then on a trip we made with friends, his cousin made a tent using sheets and a bunk bed. We went inside to read manga on his phone. He put his arms around me so we both could see the screen. Before anyone asks, he wasn't into me back then, but now we've been together for nearly 4 years. I remember a girl classmate friend liking the smell of my deodorant and just grabbing onto my arm and then proceeded to walk beside me. When he flicked between languages whilst talking on the phone with his mother and then asking me to pass him his wallet. I knew people could switch it on and off like that, but I've never seen the flow quite as effortlessly. A friend of mine I had a crush on sucked on my fingers, as a joke kinda. Then someone told her they do it in porn all the time and she never did it again, lol. We were neighbors, she just kicked out her ex-BF, and we lost power due to an ice storm. The power was restored later, but her heat wasn't working right. She called it in, but the maintenance people were busy with calls to fix heat in other units too. We were hanging out at my place watching movies and basking in my heat, though it was still chilly. So we were sharing a blanket on the couch, snuggled up together, and drinking whiskey. She passed out on the couch, so I put on an extra blanket on her and went to my room. About 1 hour later, she walks into my room and just falls into bed next to me, gets under the covers, snuggles up to me, then says I'm cold and passes out. I didn't know, maybe I felt wanted and that she came to me for comfort. We didn't hook up or anything. The next morning she woke up, and she made me breakfast, and went back to her apartment to get her heat fixed.